I think really we want to keep highlighting wasabi as being something more than what you'll find, beside your sashimi or your sushi. Wasabi is such a versatile product.
This is The Producers. I'm Anthony Huckstep.
Shima Wasabi is in northern Tasmania and shares its latitude with southern Japan. Tasmania's cool climate is the ideal year-round environment in which to grow this rare plant to create genuine wasabi products. And for Esme Atkinson, working with this amazing plant has changed her life.
So Shima Wasabi is located in northern Tasmania, just outside of Devonport, and we're the largest, we're the only commercial wasabi producer in the country. Tasmania's got the perfect cool climate, clean air. We've got plentiful rainfall, so it creates just the ideal all year round environment in which to grow wasabi. And we're also so our location mirrors the latitude of southern Japan, so we're just perfect, but on the opposite side.
Most wasabi sold around the world is typically made from horseradish, but there is nothing quite like the real thing.
Yeah, so obviously the wasabi stem is what most people refer to as the root. It's actually a modified rhizome, which is a stem. So obviously that's what's used to make the paste that people associate with wasabi. All the leaves, they grow beautiful sort of heart-shaped leaves that range in quite small sizes from 30 millimetres right up to 150 millimetres. So all those sorts of leaves can be used in things like garnishes or for canapes or even as like a wrap. And then the stalks, they're fantastic. They're like a celery or spring onion substitute. So you can put them in different salads, and they're also traditionally used for pickling. You can also, the flowers, they're stunning. They're just quite a delicate, beautiful little white flower, and they're quite popular with some of the high-end chefs. So every component can be used, and then even the offcuts, we then use that as well to produce our wasabi powder, which then can be reconstituted into a paste. So there's no wastage on the farm, very, very little wastage, which is wonderful. It's almost a combination of like a leafy water lily in a way, because it's a semi-aquatic plant, and it's quite bushy and has got really quite large leaves that you would kind of think of like water lily, but it's really unique. It's hard to describe, and I find when visitors come to the farm, they're always very surprised because they just don't really know what to expect from a wasabi plant. And everyone sort of doesn't think much about wasabi other than the green stuff in a tube, which is typically horseradish anyway. So it grows probably up to 60 centimetres high, 60 centimetres wide, sort of long stalks and large leaves, and multiple wasabi stems growing. Yeah, and it sort of changes throughout the year. So during winter, it's when it's flowering and it produces these long tendrils that grow up quite tall and end in these lovely white flowers. So it's quite pretty and delicate looking over the winter period.
Wasabi growing started in Tasmania as a Tasmanian government initiative.
Wasabi's a really challenging plant to grow. It takes anywhere from 18 months to 2 years before you'll actually be able to harvest a wasabi stem. And leaves and stalks, we can harvest them all year round, but to actually produce and harvest the stems, it's a long waiting process. In Tasmania, wasabi caught the eye of the Tasmanian government back in the mid-1990s actually, and was encouraging people to sort of experiment with the crop. We could see that it would be, a high value plant to add to the Tasmanian industry. And yeah, quite a few people set up small wasabi farms, some more successful than others. There was a farm in Mole Creek which ended up having to fold because the platypus kept disrupting the plants. So it's taken, a couple of decades to really come to what it is now. And Tas Foods was fortunate enough to take over ownership of Shima Wasabi in 2016 and sort of elevate it from there.
Notoriously difficult to plant, grow and harvest, wasabi grown in Tasmania is done so a little differently than in Japan.
We grow our wasabi quite differently to what they do in Japan. So our setup's a hydroponic setup, whereas in Japan it's grown within the waterways in a much more traditional farming practice. So we're actually able to grow our wasabi at a faster rate than what they do traditionally, and it allows us to grow larger stems. And we've had Japanese chefs come and visit and talk about the comparison between the Japanese wasabi and our wasabi, and they say that it compares in terms of in the flavour profile, but they're always very impressed at how large we managed to grow our wasabi and how quickly. And we're quite fortunate that our wasabi's free of quite a few of the diseases that exist in the wasabi crops in Japan. So, we're definitely up there in producing a really renowned quality of crop.
Esme remembers the underwhelming experience she first had with wasabi, but after working with it and understanding its complexities, it's opened up a new world of experiences.
I was a pretty curious child when it come to food. Like, I was always under my mum's feet in the kitchen, wanting to taste everything. And I remember hassling her for chili powder one day. She had chili powder, and I was just going, "You're not going to like that, you're not going to like that." And it's like, no, let me taste it. And I kind of regretted her letting me try that. But I was always interested in different things. And I remember the first time I'd had wasabi, and it was just the green stuff with some sushi, and wasn't very impressed. And then after now, sort of having access to real wasabi, it's a really different experience. So I'm glad that I didn't give up on it.
Farming wasabi was an unexpected opportunity for Esme that has been equally difficult and exhilarating.
It was actually by chance that I ended up working in this industry. Prior to that, my background was in nature conservation. I used to work for the government, working with threatened species and looking after threatened plant communities on different farms and stuff throughout Tasmania. So I sort of shifted, and then I had an opportunity to come and work on the wasabi farm, and I just thought, what a fascinating plant. So it was the plant that attracted me more so than the actual food component. But now, I love it. It's such a unique and amazing type of plant to be working with. I guess for me, it was just such a steep learning curve in dealing with a crop that very few people had any knowledge of, and sort of it was sink or swim. So as I mentioned, it's a very challenging plant to maintain and keep healthy. So it's just constantly experimenting with different ways of growing the plant, keeping it healthy, and how to manage it, and it forever changing and just adapting with it, and just sort of learning. During summer, wasabis are very upset. It doesn't like the heat, and how to kind of alleviate those pressures on the crop. So it's just been a real real challenge. And then along the way, we've made some amazing changes to, the way we harvest the product, and some of the products that we're producing, like we've got a real authentic wasabi paste now, which previously wasn't available on the market. So, yeah, it's been great to sort of go forward in many areas and, showcase what an amazing product it is.
As Esme explains, the flavour of real wasabi is something most people don't get a chance to experience.
Yeah, so obviously most people think of, when they're having wasabi, they think of that sort of great big hit of heat that kind of, takes your breath away. And yeah, that's typically the horseradish. When you have wasabi, it has that kick of the heat, but it's also very sweet and it's cleansing of your palate. So you have a little bit and then it dissipates and you want a bit more, and it almost becomes quite addictive. So it's a really enjoyable flavour compared to something like horseradish, and it's very different from chili. So chili is an oil-based heat, and so it sort of will coat your mouth and it takes a long time to disappear, whereas real wasabi it's water-based, so it will dissipate quite quickly and leave you sort of wanting more. So yeah, it's a totally different flavour profile to horseradish.
The key to the success of Shima Wasabi lies in the connections with some of Australia's very best chefs.
Yeah, chefs are definitely important. We sell our fresh produce primarily to chefs in restaurants throughout Australia, and we've been really fortunate enough to have so many wonderful chefs showcase our products, like people like Tetsuya, Peter Gilmore, Adam Liao, Masaki. There's a long list that sort of continues to grow, and we've even been fortunate enough to host the chef to the Emperor of Japan. So we have lots of amazing people that love our product, and it's wonderful when we have the opportunity to host chefs on the farm and show them through and let them experience what a wasabi plant looks like, and then get some thinking about all the different ways that they can utilise the product, and then they'll go away and talk about it and then come back and we'll start ordering all these wonderful products to put on their menus.
Although wasabi farming is a thrilling challenge, it's the connections with chefs that give the role a sense of adventure.
Oh, there's been so many great experiences I've had since working here, and they all revolve around sort of the people that we've met and been able to host on the farm. We recently had the Australian ambassador of Japan and his delegation visit, and that was fantastic. So now we're regularly supplying wasabi to the Australian Embassy of Japan, which is great. Our products are being featured on MasterChef and utilised beautifully by the contestants to create the winning dishes of the day and stuff like that. So that's always been brilliant. And then we've had film producers come on site, like Japanese based game shows that come on and do segments with us to sort of showcase what we're doing back home in Japan, and they got quite fascinated by the fact that we're growing wasabi in Tasmania. So all the amazing people that come to visit really make a difference to getting exposure of our products and what we do out there. I think it's given me a much greater appreciation for primary producers, basically. Farmers really put their heart and soul into everything they do, and I think sometimes we kind of forget that when you're at the local supermarket just grabbing stuff off the shelf. There's a lot of time and love and energy gone into sort of getting that produce there, and I think I've definitely got far greater appreciation for people who work on the land, that's for sure.
It's a continual education with wasabi, but it's far more versatile than most of us realise.
I think really we want to keep highlighting wasabi as being something more than what you'll find, beside your sashimi or your sushi. Wasabi is such a versatile product, and we're working with several chefs this year to kind of showcase the multitude of ways it can be used. Ideally, would love to see our Tasmanian grown real wasabi become a household condiment like that everyday Australian chefs are using. And it's not just about the fresh produce as well. We've got wasabi powder, which you can easily store away in the pantry, and it lasts for several years, and you can take the bit of powder out, add some water, and then you're making a paste. Or we've recently launched a ready-made paste which can sit in the refrigerator, and you can pull that out and use that instead of mustard with your steak. Or there's so many different ways to use a product. So it's about educating people about wasabi, how to use it, and we just hope that we can continue those sorts of connections and build our profile, and hopefully one day everybody's heard of us and using our wasabi.
When it boils down to it, it's the connection with nature that drives Esme every day.
I love working with plants. They don't talk back, they stay in one place, and they're generally pretty easy to please. So just tending to plants is lovely. And I also have the most amazing team of harvesters. We're a small team. There's only 6 or 7 of us any sort of given time, and we all work really hard, and we're all so passionate about what we do. We just think we're so lucky to work with such a unique plant, unique crop, and we love it, and it's just, we have a lot of fun along the way. It's great.
Esme and her team at Shima Wasabi devote themselves to the cultivation of genuine wasabi products by harvesting the pristine environment in which it is grown, and that's why it's now regarded as one of the world's best here in Tasmania.
This is The Producers, a Deep in the Weeds production. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we share the stories of producers, farmers, makers and growers, the true lifeblood of the food industry. Follow us on Instagram at Producers Podcast, or email us at producerspodcast@deepintheweeds.com.au.